Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video is about GPT-3 and we're going to see how do we fine tune a GPT-3. And you can see we have already done four videos on GPT-3 including how to write a GPT-3 prompt, how do we integrate that GPT-3 prompt into a Python code, and even done some other videos including GPT-3 embedding or doing some sentiment analysis using a GPT-3. So today we're going to focus on a fine tuning. We're going to see why do we need a fine tuning a GPT-3, and then we're going to see what are the different advantage do we have with GPT-3 fine tuning, and then finally what are those steps and we will fine tune a GPT-3 model. That's what we're going to do. So first of all, why do we need a fine tuning? So if you have seen my earlier videos, when we build an application with GPT-3, mostly what we do, we give a GPT-3 an instruction that what exactly do we want to achieve. And then we give some sample example, maybe two, three, or four examples to GPT-3 to understand what we exactly mean by this statement. And then finally we give a test example, and then we want to produce the output. Now take this example. This example is about intent classification or intent detection. So you will have an intent detection kind of thing. Let's say you have a customer support where people going to raise some query and they want to know about certain thing. If it is bank, your customer query could be related to the, maybe they are looking for a loan, or they may have a query related to the credit card or their balance check or any other issue, right? So when that query comes, you want some way to identify what is the intent of the customer, so that you can forward that query to the appropriate department. So if it is related to, let's say, loan, then you can directly forward to the loan department. If it is related to, let's say, credit card, you can pass on to the credit card. So you always need such a system where you can automatically identify the intent of the customer who is raising the query. And this particular example, what you see on the screen, is related to, I think, I took this particular data set from the Kaggle, which is the airline travel information system, where I have the link here. So here, the travel customers or the people who fly, there is some query, and we want to identify whether the query is related to the flight time. Is it related to some abbreviation they wanted to know, or is it related to some ground service? And there are some other intents are there. So usually, how do we write? We simply write something like classify the below text into one of this intent, this, and this intent, right? Something like this, and then we give an example. If this is the text, then it is actually a flight time. Then you add some separator so that you can separate those examples what we are giving. And then you add a second example and its intent, third example and intent. And the next, we assume that now GPT-3 has learned because we have given instruction. We also given three examples here, that what do we mean by, and this is the time that we can test GPT-3 whether it is able to produce. So let's say we give a text and we want to see whether GPT-3 can identify intent for this particular sentence, and we can submit a request here. And you see it did identify that this is related to the flight name. This is the awesome thing about GPT-3, that just giving two three examples, it understand what we are looking for. Maybe we can give some different example here. Let me go here, put a different example, and let me submit that request again. And let's see what it identifies. And it say it is related to the ground service. Okay. Maybe actually this has to be the plane or from terminal. It is nothing but the internal airport travel kind of thing. So it is able to do pretty good. But what happened most of the time? The most of the time, you don't have just these two, three intents. Maybe you have 20 plus intents. Or the kind of problem statement that you are dealing with, just giving these three to five examples, you will see GPT-3 is not able to produce a good results for you. Then you have two options. You can put more examples here. Maybe instead of three examples, you might put 30, 50, or 100 examples here and see whether GPT-3 can understand. But this prompt has some limit, first of all. The how many token you can put here, I think it is currently 4,000 limit, so you definitely get limited by how much you can put here. That is the first thing. The second thing related to the cost. Every time you make a request to GPT-3, when I put a cursor here and I submitted request, GPT-3 sent everything. GPT-3 sent my sample example plus my test example to predict this particular thing. Now imagine instead of these three examples, you have a 30, 50, or 100 examples here. It is going to be big cost for you because just to predict that one single example, you will be sending those hundreds of examples. So that is the another reason, the cost, and the other reason was the amount of, and they even say that the first of all that we going to save our tokens once we fine tune the model, because once you fine tune, what you will do, you don't need to send everything this, because you are already using the model which is fine tuned for you, so you simply pass this text. So you're going to save your cost, because the cost of the GPT-3 is depend on what you are sending and what output you are creating. So if you're going to send those multiple example, it is going to cost you, right? Those things, they even claim that the fine-tuned model has a lower latency, you get the faster response, right? That is the something that you have. Then what are the steps involved to do a GPT-3 fine tuning? The first thing, we need to prepare and upload our training data. We need to prepare the data the way GPT-3 or OpenAI expect. Once we prepare and uploaded data, then we can train our new fine-tuned model, and finally we can use that particular model. And we're going to see these steps. I'm going to show you how do we do that particular thing. And again, we require an OpenAI library that we require anyway whenever we want to programmatically access the OpenAI. If you haven't seen the earlier videos, then I would encourage you to go and check those videos. Here we discuss about overall GPT-3, what exactly this GPT-3 prompt mean, and how do we write those particular prompt. And then here we discuss how do we integrate that prompt in a Python code. So at least these two videos you should be familiar before we go to this third video, which is nothing but the fine tuning the GPT-3. So let's do one thing. So first of all, I need one data set kind of thing. So as I mentioned, I took this data set from the Kaggle, which is related to the airline information system, something. And so I loaded the data set here, and it has two columns. One is the intent, and this is the query that user use. We can call it as a text, and we can call it this as intent. So that's what I'm going to give that data frame name. And let's see how many unique intents we have, right? So we see there are 22 intents are available total in this all airline information system. And you could see some of these intents are actually separated by hash, which is something like, airlines, and then this is related to some flight number, some kind of intent, right? So first thing I want to do, I want to remove this hash and make it underscore, so that I want this to be a single big, intent. That's what I'm going to do. So it will create this bigger number. Again, this thing we don't want, this ATIS, which is that, you know, this is the airline information system. We just want this simple, flight, or it is the ground service or something like that. So that is I'm going to do. I'm going to take this column, intent column, and I'm going to replace wherever I see this particular value, ATIS underscore, with nothing, so that I just get rid of this particular thing. Now I have something clean: flight time, airfare, and kind of stuff, right? And we will see, you know, for each intent how many examples we have. So we see a flight, which is more of like a generic intent, everything about the flight, I guess. We have more than 3,000 examples. But related to the airfare, we have some 400 and something. For ground service, we have 255. And there are very few for the others, you could see. But for a demo purpose, what I'm going to use, I'm going to choose only few of these intents to show you the demo. So I'm going to pick up the flight, ground service, airfare, only few of those intent to show you the demo. And then I'm going to filter all the rows from this data frame where intent is in our labels, our interested labels, and that's what we're going to do. And so we got now finally data frame with having only the flight, airfare, ground service, abbreviation. Okay, don't worry. I will show you what exactly this abbreviation mean. Let me see whether I can do a control C. Yeah. So the abbreviation is means like the query could be, someone is asking what is this AP57. So this is like an someone is asking about an abbreviation. Ground service is like, it's like, for example, anything related to the ground service, maybe the luggage handling, or how do you reach to airport, sorry, inside the plane from that particular terminal, right? These all queries related to the what I say, related to maybe the ground service. So anyway, I'm going to give link to this database data set, so that you can go and learn more about this particular data set. What are the different things it has, right? I will more focus on the methodology, that how do we do it once you have your own data set. Okay. Now what I will do, This, I think, five intent that we're going to choose, and this intent has a, let's say, 54. I'm going to choose 40 examples from this each intent. 200 examples are enough. Actually, the OpenAI suggests that you should have 100 examples for each of these. But for demo purpose, I'm just going to choose only 40. If you give, instead of 40, if you give 100 for each of them, definitely the quality will be better. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this data frame, I'm going to group by this each of intent. And once I group them, I'm going to sample a 40 example from each of this group. Okay. And that's what I'm going to take as a sample. This is what that Pandas statement does here. Now you see, each of this class, I have a 40 examples. And this 40 examples, I actually want to fine tune GPT-3 on. Nothing but we simply narrow down our data set so that it becomes easy for me to play around, and you can do as per what you wanted to do. Next thing, I think our data set has first intent and then text, but I will make it first text and then intent, because on the basis of text, let's say we want to predict the intent, so I'm just altering the column arrangement. So I have now a text. Again, the basic sanity, I just want to make sure there is no extra space from left or right side. Now here comes the part where what should be the format of our data set that we want to prepare for the GPT-3. So if you go and read about the, some guidelines GPT-3 will be having. So if you want to fine tune a GPT-3, you should have each example is like in a JSON object. So this will be a JSON L file, which is nothing but JSON. What is, let me see full form. I think JSON new line or something format name. It just a JSON object notation. This is the same thing. Anyway, this JSON L, this particular format is nothing but I think we had a link here, right? Yeah, JSON lines, that L for only the lines, because we want each JSON object on each line. That's what, so that it is get separated by the slash n, that particular thing. So that is something GPT-3 is expecting, that you should have each JSON and they are separated by the slash n. That's why you call it as a JSON line format. And you don't see any array here, right? So it's not like array of this JSON object. No, you simply have a JSON object on each line. That's it. That's what this format mean. So in that each example, you have a two keys. One is the prompt, and this is the completion. So again, here a prompt means this is our input, and the completion means what is our expected output. This is our completion. And then if you read, there are some guideline based practices that when you write a prompt, make sure you end your prompt with some a unique character combination. It will act like a separator that will help GPT-3 that okay, here prompt is ending. Even you can add same some things to the completion thing. So let me see whether I could show you an example what I actually mean by that. Do I have here? Or maybe anyway we can see now. Yeah, so let's say this is like prompt. So this is the example prompt, but they are ending with this particular thing. So this will act like a separator, and this will be present on every example, so that it knows that this is where your prompt is ending. So you can have such a separator for your prompt that we're going to add. So enough, this is what the basic requirement is needed. Now let's go back and think of like how do we convert this particular text and this intent into that format, right? Which format? The JSON L format. But before we do format, what we will do, as the best practice is suggested, we're going to append some a character combination to mark that this is the end of our particular text. So I choose this thing, which is 2 slash n slash n, and then I choose intent. Now this intent need not to be there. You can even write something like triple hash hash, something like this. What is criteria here? This thing should appear on every example. Since it is a data frame column, it is going to be appeared on every example. Another thing, this whatever separator you are using, this should not come inside anywhere inside this text, right? So what if I use only the slash n separator? Then there it will cause problem, because slash n can occur here also. right? So then that will mislead the GPT-3. We want whatever you are using, make sure this has no chance to occur here inside. So I'm damn sure that this will not be occur in any of the text here inside, right? So that is what this will mark as a separator. And I am also choosing a separator for my intent, that every intent I'm going to mark as a space and end to indicate that this is the end. Again, you can choose whatever word keyword you want to use, but I'm sure none of my abbreviation has this word end, so this will act as a separator for all of them, and it is not going to conflict with the what we have, right? And this is a kind of a best practice. So see what happened. This is my query. Maybe if I do this thing, it is easy to see. This is my query, and then I added this intent. I think there is a slash, you are not able to see. Maybe maybe this is, oh, then this caused now double issue. Maybe I need to run now this whole thing again. Okay, let me see from where do I need to run this thing. Maybe I need to run this thing from, where did I, yeah, I created here, right? Let me run again this thing, right? Because I twice ran that particular thing and it appointed, yeah, you could see each of them are ending with this particular value, and even our intent is ending this thing value. This is for best practices. Another thing is that your completion should start with the space. That is also one of the suggested here. So if you see, it is starting with the space. Completion should start with the space, and you can play around it. I did play around a lot of different thing. I even try to put a instruction directly inside that particular, and then give our text and do. So you can experiment with it. There is no, these are just best practices to follow. Minimum you should have at least this text and this intent, and this is the thing that is going to make your model better, right? So now, once we have some separator for each of this line, let's generate the data that we want, right? Here you could see how does our example look like. So this is the query user has given, and then we add our separator here. Whenever the GPT-3 came across this particular thing, double slash n here, here two slash n, that this is, it means that the prompt has finished, the text has finished. Similarly, whenever it will encounter this space and end, it will come to know now this particular intent has finished, and maybe now next example will start. So this is just for the sake of putting those separators. And again, you can put anything instead of this intent. You could put simply, triple hash or five hash, anything that you think it will not occur here. Maybe it's becoming repetitive now. Anyway, so we have this thing again. We want those column names to be the prompt and completion we just saw here, the prompt and the completion. So let's put them prompt and completion, and this is the statement actually that going to convert our a data frame into those JSON lines. So if you search this two JSON function of pandas, you will see it can convert a pandas data frame into the JSON format called two JSON format. And it has an important thing called what is that, a parameter which is the orient, this particular thing. Now depend on what you are using for the orient, it generate the record format. So currently we use the thing called records. We need to orient as a record so that each row will come as a dictionary kind of structure. You have a key and the value kind of, this is what we require. We require a prompt and its value, the completion and its value. And there are some other ways you can see. Sometimes you might want to have a data where you just have a, maybe a index and then column value, or maybe something like this, column and then index and value. There are many variations, you could see, but we stick to this because this is what gives us what we want, taking each row as a record which will become a key value pair. And that's what we're going to do. Maybe we can see that thing once we create it. So let's look at this sample JSON. It will be here somewhere. Okay, and again, this is JSON lines, and this lines is equal to true is what actually doing that particular thing putting. So let's see this, not this one, this one. This is our example now, because each row has become now this dictionary. And here This is our prompt. First column, its value here. Second column, that is what I mean by key and the value, key and the value. And again, you could see our prompt, everything has ended with this thing. So this is consistent across every example. So whenever GPT-3 came across this, it knows that the prompt has finished. And similarly, this thing, for everything we are ending. And you don't see any array symbol here, right? Because it's not array, it's just a JSON object on each line. That is the format expected. Okay, now let's go back to the notebook again. Now we have a data in a format we want. Now we can pass the data to GPT-3, because if you look at our steps here, we need to prepare and upload. Now we have prepared it, we're going to upload our data. I'm just installing the OpenAI here. Let me clear this output, right? And then OpenAI, once you have OpenAI installed, OpenAI has tools to prepare our data, which is actually finetunes.prepare and the name of the file. So our name of the file was the intent sample dot that JSON L. So let's run this statement. So it actually gets uploaded to, now it is asking certain things to us. What it is asking? It has found certain duplicate in our thing, right? And it is recommending that we should remove. So let's listen and let's remove them. It is now asking whether do we want to split our data into the training and validation. Let's say yes. And now it's want to write that to a new file. That is also fine. Okay, so that data preparation has finished. Maybe if we refresh, we can see now we got two files. The intent sample has become now prepared train and prepared validation, right? Now we have prepared data, both training and validation. We can fine tune our model. To do that thing, the first thing we want to make sure that we have OpenAI, you know, OpenAI API key. And if you have watched earlier video, you know how to get this particular key. So I'm just going to say that thing as an environment variable, and then we're going to use the next command. So on top, you use finetunes.prepare data. Now we're going to use the create, which is the creating the fine tune model. And we have to give two things. One is the hyphen T, which is our training file created here on this step, hyphen V validation file that we created here. And then which base model. So we have a DaVinci. This is the model that we're going to use because this is the most powerful model they have. And then we're going to submit the request. So once you run this thing, so now it is saying that what file I'm uploading seems to be they have that particular file already there. It could be because I have run it multiple times. So what I'm going to do, it is saying if I want to still upload it again, then I have to just press enter, and that's what we're going to do. And it is going to ask same thing for me for my validation file, and I'm going to press enter to anyway upload my file again. Now what is this thing? Okay, it is showing that the fine tune cost is this particular, and it has queued my job there, and it might take some time now because it's going to take maybe 10-15 minutes to get this job run on OpenAI server. So I will pause video here, and once it finishes, then I will start recording again. Okay, now you can see the fine tuning has finished. One thing I want to tell you, so when we ran this particular sale, you see the stream got interrupted. We get some response from them, right? As a progress. And when it get interrupted, you will also get a command that you can again run. So it is fine if you're running in notebook and notebook got disconnected, or the laptop got shut down because process is running on OpenAI server and not on our machine. So we can always ask for what is the progress there. So even you can run this follow command to get the progress on your particular fine tuning, and that's what we did. I ran this command, and now I could see the progress that it has completed 4 epochs. This is the default epochs it does, and we got our new model, which is this, a Da Vinci model with some uh, some unique name to it so that we can identify. Now we can use this model to make a request to GPT-3, and that we can try using this particular model. So let's do one thing. Now what we will do, let me comment this particular thing so that let's say we have a, this is the prompt that we want to send. So we want to ultimately want to make a prediction on something like this, right? So we have this thing, do we have a London flight on Monday, something like this is the text that we want to predict the intent. But again, do you remember, we have put a separator after each of that prompt, and we need to pass that same separator here also. So we will put that, uh, twice our slash n intent, and again those slash n. That is one thing. While passing the prompt, make sure you pass the same way, the way you fine tune. And then let me copy our model name here, which I'm going to put in OpenAI request. So let me replace this old name which I have with the new one that we got. Right? Again, if you see, I am also putting is a stopping criteria, which is nothing but the separator that we have put for our label. If you could remember, let me go here, right? So since it is generative model, sometimes it generates something extra word that we don't want also. So let's say in that case, this might happen that it generate that for this thing intent is abbreviation, it will generate end, and it will still keep generating something extra also. So we can tell that you need to stop when you encounter end, because that is the end for our intent. So you can also part this particular extra step like a stop, when it should stop generating the input. And we know that if it came across this one while generating, it means it has already generated our label, because our label ends with this particular thing. So let's do this thing. Let's make a request, and this is the same request that we have used earlier, right? So this is the way we make a request to our OpenAI API. And this is not just fine tuning, it could be any model. So if it is not fine tuning, you only have this model name, Da Vinci. That's it, nothing this thing. This is our, so this is nothing but taking the model name. So if you want to see from where do we get this thing, if you come to our playground here, and if you click on view code section, you have different language. You can select Python one, and you see what you see there in the notebook. It is something taken from here only. So by default, model name will be this text Da Vinci, this particular model, default model we have. But now here we have our own fine-tuned model. That's what we're going to name, and everything remains, same. Nothing changes. So let's make a request and see whether it is able to predict. Now it is saying flight. Okay, it is related to the flight, the one of the intent that we have. Now let's see whether it predict this particular thing. Okay, even I don't. Now let's see whether this intent, where we are actually asking some abbreviation here, it does predict it is an abbreviation. Now this is something, another prompt example, which is related to some ground uh, service, and we see, and it is saying the ground service. So it is able to do without now giving this all these examples. What we do, where was our playground? This is the example. We simply pass now our test example. Why? Because model knows this example already. We have fine-tuned it, right? This is what we did. So this is how you will fine tune your model. Now in this case, the particular example that what we saw, we are getting already good result without even fine tuning it. But if you consider all those 25 or 22 intent, and they're all sort of different examples, just writing in a prompt might not be sufficient, and you might have a use case where you literally need to fine tune it. And this is the steps to fine tune the particular model. Let's see what happens if you remove this thing. Let's comment this thing, and we don't require this parameter now, and let's run this thing. You see we got some extra keywords coming, end. So that is the reason we put a stop word. So whenever we come across the single word end, it means it needs to stop generating. Okay, because we have already generated. And why do we decided we want to keep end here? Because this is the separator we have used for our label, and since it is generating label, then we can use that separator, that this is going to occur after our label, and then we don't want to generate anything because that is what we wanted, right? So this is something you can read more about it. Actually, what is this, stopping sequence. I might not have justified in that 1 minute or something, but you can always go read about the prompt parameter. There are other parameters what we have, right? So this is what we do. What we did, we simply take our data set. We do some basic cleaning because we have to think text and the intent. We make sure we have a proper separator for our prompt, which is our query, and then our completion, which is our intent. So we had a separator for them, and we make sure we generate data in a format what is expected by the GPT-3, which is nothing but this particular format, Json line format, where we have each line is our one example, and our each example has two part. One is the prompt and it's a completion. Both of them are ending this thing. So I hope you found this video useful. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, do subscribe, and I would urge you watch this earlier videos where I talk more detail about GPT-3, right? So this was not an introductory video because I assume that you know already GPT-3, you know already what is GPT-3 API and all these things, right? And then we should go. So I am not spending any time discussing this because I have already discussed that thing, earlier these two videos. So please go watch those video. Let me into the comment that what kind of videos you are expecting from me, or do you have any doubt related to GPT-3 videos that what I have done. Thank you.